Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our spring orchestra concert in the high school. We're so glad you're all able to be with us this evening. We have a lot of exciting pieces. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Take a moment, if you would, just silence any devices that might make noise. If you do need to leave, we ask you to do it between pieces. And just one note on this program, I'll talk about the pieces specifically as we go along. We are going to do a little more moving around than we normally do in terms of where the students are seating, because the different pieces have different needs. So we'll do it as quickly and carefully as possible, but just a little warning to be a little more moving than we normally do. We have 3 chamber ensembles performing this evening, and we have just a slight program change because we have some folks coming from a game, and this will make it more likely that they get here on time. So the trio is going to start rather than the Bach. We have 3 chamber ensembles thanks to a grant from the Bronxville School Foundation. We have a guest coach, Joanna Jenner, who comes in about once a month to help work with them and coach them. And the first is a trio playing, it's a bit of a downer to start, and it's a dirge to open a concert, but it's a really beautiful by Hungarian composer Bela Bartok. So thank you so much for being here, and enjoy. I'm now going to invite up the high school orchestra, and I want to introduce their first piece. So Johann Sebastian Bach is a composer you maybe heard of, one of the most famous composers of the Baroque era. We're going to be hearing a bit about the Baroque era tonight. And he was particularly noted for writing canons and fugues, things where basically you have one line of music and you write music that complements it, that goes on at the same time. And he could do that on the spot and improvise it. So when he was older, one of his sons, C.B.E. Bach, who was a composer, was the composer in residence to Frederick the Great. And Frederick was also a musician, and he said, "Isn't your dad that guy who writes like all the canons and fugues? I'm going to try to trick him. I'm going to write a theme that's so like gnarly and amusical that I'm going to try to stump him." And so Bach came, and Frederick presented this melody, and Bach sat down and proceeded to improvise a 3-voice fugue on top of this impossible theme. And then he said, "Okay, how about a 6-voice fugue?" And Bach said, I'll get back to you. Took it home and a few months later published what's known as the musical offering, which is a set of variations and canons and fugues based on this sort of impossible theme. One of the, I think, most interesting canons is called a crab canon. And so the way this canon works, what we're going to be performing right now, is the students are going to play it in unison, so all playing the same part from start to finish, reading it left to right as one normally would. Then, a group of them are going to start at the end, and they are going to read it backwards. They're going to play it backwards from end to beginning. And then, and here's Bach's real genius, half of the group will play it backwards, and the other half will play it forwards at the same time, and it works that way. And it's known as a crab canon because crabs walk side to side, and so it works side to side, back and forth. That was an arrangement of Shenandoah, the famous American tune by Mark O'Connor, one of our greatest living fiddle players, who was dedicated about the last decade and a half to developing music for string students from the American folk tradition. I think that's a particularly beautiful arrangement of Shenandoah. We now have our next chamber ensemble, a string quartet, playing one of Haydn's famous string quartets. And they have chosen / been suggested to them to have the upper string standing, the cello sitting, which is actually a commonly used technique in quartets. And this is one of Haydn's sort of always called like the father of the string quartet. He was kind of the first composer to really, really say like, I'm writing string quartets for this grouping of instruments, and they're absolutely gorgeous and timeless, and everyone since, even if they're not writing in that style, they're in some way kind of responding to Haydn's quartets, and his Opus 20 are some of the most influential. So we hope you enjoy. next piece, really, really excited about, even more than I usually am, and I'm always excited about pieces, but we were so lucky this year to get a grant from the Bronxville School Foundation for a set of Baroque bows. In the fall of last school year, not this year, but the previous year, the students in high school and honors orchestra at the time did a field trip to Trinity Wall Street in Lower Manhattan to hear their Baroque orchestra. And we had the privilege of speaking with Robert Neely, who's the concertmaster of that group and the director of historical performance at Juilliard, about string playing. At the time we were doing a Vivaldi, and I said, any advice for us? We're working on Vivaldi, and he said, get Baroque bows. It's the very first thing he said. And so we're so fortunate to have gotten them. If you look on the cover of your program, there's a picture, and it's actually a picture of 4 different violin bows. So we tend to think of these instruments as old, and they certainly are compared to most things we interact with on a daily basis. The string instruments that we're playing were developed to their present form in the early 1600s, so early 17th century. Names like Stradivarius, you've heard of a Stradivarius violin that sold for $7 million. That's when he was making them. They weren't exactly the same. The fingerboard, the bridge height, there's some differences. And particularly the bow is different. So the bow on the left is a Baroque violin bow, and the bow on the right is what we call a modern bow, which by the mid-19th century, that's what was standard. So modern is about 170 years old at this point. You can see the Baroque bow is shorter. It's kind of shaped a little different. It arcs upward. The in-between bows are intermediate bows, so like Mozart's time and late Baroque and Mozart's time. Of course, in the 1600s, early 1700s, things weren't standardized across Europe. Different regions, different makers. A bow or an instrument might be a little different. So these bows are shorter. They don't play sustained. They don't play even sound from frog to tip. They have kind of a shape. And the students can't get enough of me saying the term messa di voce. Messa di voce is a technique that we spent a lot of time working on, kind of blooming of the sound, an accent, a bow accent, and we'll hear that in the Corelli. To practice that, we went to a text from 1749 called The Art of Violin Playing by Gemignani and used some of his warm-ups. And the students even took some of his exercises and transcribed from his original writing into digital music notation software and transposed them and then played some of them in class. And so we brought all of that into this Corelli Concerto Grosso. It's in 3 movements, although there's 2 of the movements kind of have 2 movements within them. So the first movement has a very slow beginning and then fast. Second movement is slow, fast, and then the third movement is 2 fast movements. And we'll have a little shift of violin soloists between the second and the third, so we're really excited to share this Concerto Grosso with you. honors, after you switch your bow, you're going to go have a seat. We've got one more chamber group in. So the Dvorak Quartet should be coming on stage now that they're switching the bows. So while they're exchanging bows and instruments back there, our final chamber group this evening is going to be performing the first movement of Dvorak's American Quartet. Antonin Dvorak, the Czech composer, late 19th century, spent a time in the 1890s in New York City where he was the director of what is now the Juilliard School. And while living here, he composed his Symphony No. 9 from the New World. He was very influenced by composing here, by African-American spirituals, by what he said was Native American culture, although it was pretty filtered through, I don't think he really interacted with any actual Native cultures, but through what he thought he was experiencing. And he particularly was interested in his own home country of taking folk music and bringing it in the concert hall, and he encouraged American composers in the United States to do the same, because until then, composers in the US for these ensembles were kind of just imitating their European counterparts. They weren't doing much to stand out. And then after Dvorak, really a whole host of composers in the 20th century were influenced by him. So he was here for about 3 or 4 years and really had a huge influence. And this is one piece that he composed here as well. That's why it's called his American Quartet. And the members of that quartet are welcome to walk out while I'm talking, if you got your instruments. This group submitted a video to the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center's Young Artists Competition, and they were selected to perform in the regional semifinal concert, which was hosted right here at Bronxville High School in February, and that had performers from all over New York, New Jersey, Connecticut performing here, so it was a great honor. And so they've made a video that some judges saw. They performed for a few family members who are here, but mostly for this audience of people at the semifinals. So I'm really excited for them to get to share this piece now with our community here in Bronxville. So it's the first movement of Dvorak's American Quartet. Our next piece is going to feature our harpist, Charlotte. The piece Brittany, inspired by a tune passed around by ear, not by one definitive tune, a Celtic folk tune by composer Alyssa Wright, who created this arrangement specifically for our Bronxville High School Honors Orchestra. We spoke early at the beginning of the year, talked about the group, and she arranged it with this group in mind. So this is, it's not the premiere of the work itself because it's been performed in different versions, but it's a premiere of this version of the work. And we're really excited to feature our harpist, Charlotte, this evening, and also excited to welcome Alyssa here to the concert tonight. So thank you for being here, Alyssa. Before we play our final piece of selections from the musical Wicked, it's the spring concert, which is always a bittersweet time because it means it's our final performance for our seniors. This year we have 5 wonderful students who will be very greatly missed next year, and I want to take a moment to recognize them. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Starting in the violin section, we have Sophia and Kiri. Would you please stand up and be recognized, Sophia? Kieran Madhavan. Aiden Gageler. Over to the viola section, Liberty Wilson. And in the back with the big one, Michael Knox. Each of these seniors is a really, really special and important part of the group. What you see in the performance and so much behind the scenes as well. And we wish them all the best in the future. I hope music is a part of it in some way, whether it's performing this instrument exactly or in any other way. But I hope music remains a really important part of your life, and that you can find a lot of inspiration and comfort in it. And now we are excited to finish our concert with selections from Wicked.
Hi, my name is Liberty Wilson. I'm a senior. We just quickly wanted to say a few words about Mr. Dell. The seniors, we are so sad to be leaving him. We've only had him for 3 years, but honestly, personally for me, I can say he's been like the best high school orchestra conductor ever. I've grown so much under him. I've exceeded like far past expectations of where I thought I would get music, and his like love for music, his love for education, his love for teaching us, like it inspires all of us, and I know me and the rest of the seniors are gonna be so sad to see him leave. We had this card that was signed by everybody that we want to give to you, and we had Aiden coming out with flowers and another speech right now.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Dell for all the opportunities he's given us, from the grants to the coaches to the Lincoln Center competitions for chamber music, and not to forget the Baroque bows. We are one of the few fortunate schools to be able to use them, and it's a really unique experience. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate that, Liberty and Aiden and everyone. I really, really do. And thank you all, to all the families. Thank you for your support, for getting here. Thank you to, I know, flexibility for getting to concerts and rehearsals and all that. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to lots of excitement in the years ahead. Thank you so much. One more round of applause for this orchestra.